Hello everyone and welcome to the Athletic HQ. My name is Adam Leventhal and this is the Deal Sheet Live on transfer deadline day. We've got a great show lined up for you, we hope, because we have some wonderful talent in the studio alongside me. Where shall I start? Let's start with the football correspondent of The Athletic, the transfer brains, dribbling out of his ears with stories. It's David Ornstein. How are you?
Dribbling out of his ears. My ears definitely don't dribble. My mouth does on occasion. Yeah, I'm good. How are you guys? All right?
Yeah, very good, very good. So Orny is here. We also have the tactical nous of two men that you are very familiar with, of course, and that is first JJ Bull.
Hello.
How are you, JJ?
Fantastic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How's the clock doing?
The clock is ticking.
Excellent. That's good. And Jon Mackenzie is here as well. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thanks.
Are you feeling the energy of the transfer deadline day?
Yes, definitely. I'm thrilled to be here.
Excellent. We've got transfer news and insincerity abound for you on this show. What we're going to try and do for you is tell you what's going on and then what may come up later on towards the 11 o'clock deadline in the UK, which is, if you're watching around the world, let's give the timestamp of Eastern time, which would be 6 o'clock in the evening Eastern. That's right, isn't it? Yeah?
Yes.
World clock. Okay, let's get stuck into some details for you. We are going to be answering some of your questions, which have been sent in on various social platforms, but also keep the comments coming in and we will try to get to them as much as possible. David, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you. And just to flag it for everyone, if we can just show Orny in action here at the moment, you can see he is fixated on his phone, which is all part of the job. But if something does happen and you need to just take a moment, then by all means do that. But let's deal with some of the big names that are potentially moving on this deadline day, and we still don't know exactly what's going to be happening with them. Where should we start? Should we start with the two big strikers, Ivan Toney and Victor Osimhen? Where do you want to start, David?
That's very sizist, isn't it? No, they are tall, they are big names, and they could be going for big fees in the case of Ivan Toney, because there's been an agreement between Al Ahly in the Saudi Pro League and Brentford that would see Toney move for 40 million euros, which is pretty impressive with a year to go on his contract and no other suitors at the table. We understand that once that agreement was reached kind of overnight into this morning, that a medical was lined up, reports that he's been taking that in London, suggestions of a 3-year deal. I don't have the details confirmed yet, but that is the direction of travel. The news of the Toney deal broke just moments after a lot of reports surfaced, in particular from Italy, that Al Ahly had agreed a deal with Napoli for Osimhen.
Yeah.
And very quickly checked them out, and it became clear that Al Ahly were sort of pursuing the two of them in tandem, but only with the space in their squad and also the budget to go through with one of them. And that one, the priority has always been Toney. And therefore, you ask the question, what about Osimhen? And the answer is that PSG aren't there. Nobody else seems to be, so it would be a case of staying at Napoli, or if he has to move, will it be Chelsea? And Chelsea are awaiting a green light from Victor Osimhen himself, that he's prepared to go ahead with this move. He wants to join them, he's keen on it, and he's been their top target for a number 9 all summer. But he would have to agree to fit into their team and incentive-based wage structure.
Yes.
And if he does, and his camp give the indication to Chelsea that they're ready to advance, then Chelsea will head into negotiations very quickly, because it's gone 5 o'clock now here in the UK, with Napoli to try and strike a deal to sign Victor Osimhen. So it's quite delicate at this point, with no guarantees on what's going to happen.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And I suppose, it does come down to whether Chelsea are thinking, hang on a minute, we really do need a striker. We want someone to back up Nicholas Jackson. Just quickly breaking away from sort of Orny's intel on it, is Victor Osimhen, how would he fit into Chelsea, JJ?
He would just play up front as a number 9, where Jackson does. One of the things interesting with it is that Osman would probably have to be the number 9 and the guy who actually starts.
He's moving.
He's joined. Something's happening.
He's
Got to make a quick call.
Oh my word, everything's happening now.
There you go. It's live. It's live. Orney's on the move. He's going to make a call. But you have to promise to tell us what's on the call later on and take your microphone off. Otherwise, it will be broadcast to the world. JJ, carry on.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So if Osman was the actual first choice, then that sort of puts a big roadblock in the way of Jackson's development, because last year he posted really good underlying numbers. He didn't hit over his expected goals as you'd want him to, and I think it was something like the 19th or 20th best non-penalty XG posting that anyone's done in the last something like 5 years. I've got a loose stat here, but basically he was amazing last year even though he wasn't. So like his underlying numbers show there's a real player there. But if you then have a player like Osterman who's taking away his minutes in every single game, he's not going to be able to post the same numbers and therefore won't maybe become the player they want him to. But if you're Chelsea, you want to have someone elite that's there. And the only real part of that squad that they're probably short on depth, like elite level depth, is striker. So you just have someone. The other options are Mark Gier, who's really young and needs to develop. So you can't really, rely on him in that. And Nkunku and Felix are not, forwards. Maybe drop in as a false 9, which Maresca has done in the past. So you could use that as well. Yeah,
it's more of a malleable formation or philosophy that Maresca has, isn't it?
Yeah, John, he just likes having someone to drop into. It's quite Guardiola-ish, which is not what Osimhen would offer you, really, or Jackson.
Yeah, I think the thing you get with Osimhen is he's a goal scorer, and he does that through just really elite movement, both running in behind back lines, but also with good movement in the box as well. He's also very good aerially as well, although he's only about 6 foot, which is relatively small for a striker. He's very good. He's got a good leap, so he will get chances in the box. And I think for a team like a team who are following Guardiola's principles, what that means is that if you don't have a striker who is going to be offering you that penalty box threat when you've squeezed an opposition into their own penalty box, it's a great way of just having some kind of inroads into the opposition's defence if you can score aerially as well. So I think he gives a couple of things. Gives you the ability to get in behind, really good movement, really good against packed defences. The big question with him, I think, is maybe more on the what does he offer outside of goal scoring, which we've just talked about Nicholas Jackson, who has put up good underlying numbers but not scored the goals. With Osimhen, you will get someone who scores the goals. The question is whether or not he's going to have as much of an impact on the players around him as well. So he's the sort of player that if you've got a load of creative players in your team, it's fine because he's going to score a ton of goals. But if you're needing someone who's a bit more creative, maybe look elsewhere. But Chelsea have plenty of creative players, so I see this as being a sort of fairly obvious go for, and he's been the number 9 in the market for the last 2 or 3 seasons now, ever since Napoli had that great season. So everyone's been talking about him going to a big club, so it makes all kinds of sense for this to happen.
Jackson's not that much younger than him either. Jackson's like 23, just turned 23. I think Osimhen's 25 and a bit, so he's closer to 26 than 25.
Yeah. Do you stop doing halves?
He's 25 until he's 26.
Yeah.
So he's still not 26.
Yes.
Which is important.
But he is closer to 26 than he is to 25.
Okay.
But that's the thing with the Chelsea have got European football this season. Jackson can't play 38 league games and all the European games, so they do have to have someone. And if it's one of the best available strikers that there is, then that's probably good.
It is fascinating how everyone was talking about number 9s, and this was going to be the year of the number 9, and it feels like no one's actually gone for any of the number 9s. I mean, we were talking about Ivan Toney before as well, and he was a player that was held out as being, he's going to go make a big move somewhere, and that hasn't happened for various reasons. And the same's true for Osimhen, right? Has a really good season with Napoli. The following season, things drop off a little bit, and then suddenly we're in this situation where we didn't even necessarily think that these players were going to be making that move. So interesting to see how the 9 market has shifted this window, I think.
And obviously, we haven't really mentioned the fact that Osimhen does sort of need to leave because they've brought in Romelu Lukaku, and he's obviously Antonio Conte's fave. So, look, Orney's back, walking in front of the camera like a true pro. There we go. Here he is. He's back. Can you tell us anything about what's just happened, or shall we move on to what we're going to talk about next.
Well, firstly, how else did you expect me to get to my seat? Was I going to sort of crawl under the table?
No, I thought you might sort of fashion away, in the TV way, but it's cool. It's live.
No, so there's a story breaking about Newcastle maybe trying to sign Anthony Elanga from Nottingham Forest.
Ah, okay.
But my initial checks have suggested it's not going to happen.
Ah.
So I don't know if it's that there's interest or not interest, or whether there's an offer or not offer, but the word from Forest is that's not going to proceed. So clearly there are always these things on deadline day that come out of nowhere. And some of them do materialise. We've been through enough of these sort of shocks before. But equally, for a lot that you do hear, a great deal of it either isn't accurate or doesn't come to fruition. And early indications are that is not one that's developing. But I will keep in touch with people in case that changes.
Yeah, and it is reflective of teams on this deadline day covering their tracks as well, maybe putting out the feelers to various different clubs, asking about strikers, for example, and wanting to cover their bases a little bit. So that does happen quite a lot on deadline day. I just wanted to go back to the Ivan Toney situation. Orney's obviously back here now, and I'll get your take on it in a minute. But Ivan Toney potentially going to Saudi Arabia, how does that make you feel?
That's an interesting question. What are you trying to dig out there?
How does that make you feel? Do you want me to tell you how it makes me feel?
I'd be interested.
I think it makes me feel disappointed, because I like to see him play in the Premier League. I'd like to have seen him play for a top 6 side.
You're going to say England as well. I know that you have this thing where you're like,
no, I'm sure he can continue to play for England.
Do you think it impacts that?
I feel disappointed, and it's circumstantial. Obviously, he missed a period of time that then kicked him into the last year of his contract, etc., and that has forced or not forced the hand of Brentford. So I'm just a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, I think circumstances have machinated against him a little bit. We're not going to be able to see what he could have done. And yeah, I think it's a real shame that we're not going to see that. But as you say, the way that things have happened has transpired that the Brentford have brought in replacements, and therefore you have to keep your squad moving. So yeah, it's a real shame that we're not going to be seeing him in the Premier League next season.
How does it make you feel, JJ?
I can't think of the feeling. I need to pick a word for it. I think cromulent. I think I don't know why. I don't know why you'd be so worried about him going. You could watch him in the Saudi League. There'll be clips on the internet that you could catch up with what he's doing. His XG dropped off a cliff last season.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah, it wasn't playing yesterday. He had a really good season with Brentford, but a lot of it was non-penalty expected goals when he was really flying. His best season, he's really posted huge numbers. We're in the Championship and lower league. I think he's a good player in there, but he'll take time to get back to his best. I don't know why he's not started for Brentford. Also, he's maybe trying to get rid of him this season.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. They want to sort of wrap him up in cotton wool and make sure that if someone's going to come in and pay £40 million for him or so, then he is ready to go. David, let's get back to you, if we may. I think we've sort of covered off the Toney Osimhen situation, unless you're sort of sensing that there might be some sort of late twist in Toney staying domestically.
Not to a different club. I don't know of any other proposals being there for Brentford or for him, and there's no time now, really, anyway. What would happen if the Saudi move doesn't materialise? And don't forget, they've got more time in which to complete it.
Till September the 2nd?
Yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah. So there's a bit less pressure on that. But if it doesn't come to fruition, he'll have to stay, I guess, and go into his final year. I've reported for more than a year that Toney was very seriously considering waiting for free agency in the summer of 2025, and then he gets his pick of clubs. But the way things are going now, this will get done without saying with complete certainty. But I don't know of there being any other options, which is quite a surprise given this is a player who has an impressive goal scoring record for Brentford. He's done well for England at the Euros. He was said to be of interest for a long time to the likes of Arsenal, Man United, Chelsea, maybe backup consideration at places like Manchester City, and it's just come down to Al Ahly in the Saudi Pro League, which potentially is him stepping away from his international career, his chance of Champions League football for the time being. And the fact that no other suitors came to the fore from the Premier League in particular is quite surprising.
Yeah. Moving away from Tony and Osimhen, I think we've covered that off. But staying with Chelsea, who've been mentioned with Osimhen as well. Just in general, the situation at Chelsea, I'm not going to say how does that make you feel, but I mean it is quite a situation, isn't it, JJ?
They've done some things. They've done a lot of things. They have about 7 goalkeepers. Like some of it's, we did this, there's a video we've got coming out on this channel tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yes, so good promo, I've done it now.
Well done.
But I look at Chelsea's squad, and the squad building, it's actually quite good. Like they've got some really good players in each position. As far as a strong squad, it's good, although if they add Osimhen to it, that's probably like I said earlier, maybe the weakest part of the entire depth they've got. And they've got good coverage all around the pitch. They've got decent players in every single position. That might cause some friction as good players battle for the same position, but you want competition, so that's good. The problem they've got is lots of people and lots of money that they then can't do anything with because they can't even register them. So they don't register those players by the cut-off of the window, then you can't do anything with them. So you'll have players like Sterling and Chilwell, all the rest, all the ones who've been pushed out to their own to train on their own, have their own lunch boxes and things like that. Then that's a lot of money wasted, really, isn't it? And you don't want that. But the squad is good and competitive.
Yeah, and we saw that they can perform against Wolves. We saw that 6-2 victory, which was quite something.
Although underlying numbers in that again, kind of.
Yes, underlying numbers. I know. But you do get quirky underlying numbers sometimes, don't you?
Yes,
you do. Right, Orny. One thing JJ mentioned, one person that JJ mentioned there, Raheem Sterling. What's happening there?
Raheem Sterling is right now, as far as we know, staying at Chelsea. There's no deal in place for him to leave. There have been a lot of rumours about Arsenal and suggestions that conversations are taking place. I don't know of whether any conversations have taken place. I don't know of any deal being close or even likely to materialise in any way, shape or form. As far as I know, Arsenal's incoming business is done. Now, you never know what could happen late on, and there have been suggestions that Arsenal will make a loan offer. Would Chelsea consider that? I think Sterling would. He wants to go and play somewhere. And Arsenal carries particular appeal, as we understand it. Manchester United might have been an option. There was talk of a swap deal with Jadon Sancho that has sort of dissipated over the last few days. And Arsenal would mean him staying in London, and he knows Mikel Arteta from Manchester City. From what I hear, he really likes the club, the look of the project, and how competitive and stable they are. But that's very different to an agreement being in place for him to make a move. And there's only a few hours to go. He faces the very real prospect of having to stay at Chelsea, where he has been stripped of his shirt number. He's not training with the main group, and they'll have to, if he does end up staying beyond the deadline, either discuss a termination of contract, which would surprise me because there's 3 years left and he earns in excess of £300,000 a week. So with loyalty bonuses due, that would run into the tens of millions of pounds. Or he would hang around, keep training until the January transfer window comes about, and then they can revisit it then. So it seemed coming into deadline day that we would see some movement with Sterling, but it was always caveated by what we reported, that he wants to resolve his contractual situation at Chelsea before assessing options. I think if this had happened earlier in the summer, we definitely would have seen a resolution. But it appears that maybe all parties have just run out of time.
Obviously, it's linked with the Jadon Sancho situation, as you mentioned, and you reported around about an hour ago about Chelsea looking as if they are going to reach an agreement on that element of it. They're not. It's not a swap deal, but it looks as if Jadon Sancho is going to be heading to Stamford Bridge. Can you answer the question and type out that? Did you want to finish that?
Multitasking is far beyond me. So let's deal with one thing at a time. There is an expectation that an agreement will be reached between Chelsea and Manchester United for Jadon Sancho to make a move that would initially be a loan. And the discussion at the moment is centering on an obligation to buy at the end of that loan. other reports suggest, certain criteria will have to be met for the loan to be turned into an obligation. But while no sort of agreements are in place and deals are done, that is the direction of travel. And so I think that will be a deal that gets done on deadline day. And it's the wish of Sancho, I think, to leave permanently. If that wasn't possible, then a loan. He clearly wants to get away from Manchester United. Manchester United, I think, would prefer a permanent deal, but a loan with an obligation is as close as you'll get to that. It's virtually the same thing, and barring that, they would have probably sanctioned a loan. It just hasn't worked out, despite him and Erik ten Hag recoupling. I think it was more just marriage.
All that energy that they.
Well, I don't think it was energy. I think it was that Erik ten Hag agreed to let him train with the first team.
Right.
I don't think it was like they sort of hugged, kissed, and made up, and were looking forward to a bright future together. It was simply a reintegration into the first team setup, and it appears that there's no future there for him, which was quite shocking given the investment and given how well he's done when he's played for Borussia Dortmund on loan last season, competed in the Champions League final. No other Manchester United player of last season can say that. But Chelsea, look, everybody's turning around and saying, what on earth are Chelsea doing signing another wide player? But I don't think this is from the ownership or sporting directors. I think that Enzo Maresca wants another wide player. He hasn't seen Mudryk deliver the goods yet. Sterling is surplus to requirements. He's not an option for whatever reason. And so Sancho would add to the number of attacking options at his disposal. We don't know yet if they'll be bringing in a number 9. So, if they don't get an Osimhen or somebody else, then players like Sancho will be relied upon to play across that front line in the same way that in Kunku and Nicholas Jackson and so on.
You are watching the Deal Sheet live here at the Athletic HQ in London. That was, speaking just then, the football correspondent of The Athletic, the main transfer man here at The Athletic. And Jon Mackenzie is alongside me. He's on his phone, as you can see. I'm going to allow David to just have a little tinkle on his WhatsApps. He does love to do that. Jon Mackenzie's here as well, and JJ Bull too, just to give us a little bit of analysis on some of the names that we are talking about. We'll get stuck into some more names in a moment's time, but I wanted to just answer one of the questions that David raised there. Where does Sancho fit in for Chelsea? Where does Sancho fit in for Chelsea, John?
I think when people first came across Jadon Sancho, they were expecting him to be the way that most modern wingers are, which is like often two-way wingers who can go either way around, fullbacks, have explosive pace, really good at dribbling, etc. And I don't think Sancho quite fits that mould. He's a player who I think thrives off having other players around him. So if you can overload areas and have him as a sort of controller in those spaces, those are the moments when he really does well. So I think part of the reason why Sancho has a kind of interesting the way that people in the UK think of him is sort of seems to be quite low. I think it's partly to do with the fact that they don't really understand, haven't seen him playing in that way, because obviously he did a lot of that at Dortmund. So the big question is at Chelsea, can they get him into those areas where he is able to facilitate quick passing moves, have the ability to bring his teammates into play? And if they can do that, and I guess what we've seen from Chelsea so far under Maresca is that they are doing a lot of wide build-up. They are able to force teams back into their own penalty box. Those are the areas where he will be able to thrive if you can get players around him.
Thank you very much for the questions that are coming in. I haven't been name checking some of these questions, and I've been sort of repurposing them and pretending that they're myself, they're my own. Breedy there, thank you very much for asking about Sancho. Earlier on, CFC Eddie was talking about Victor Osimhen. Thank you very much indeed. A Kelly talking about Raheem Sterling. We've got plenty more questions in as well, and keep your comments coming in. In terms of what John was saying there, you think, right, we're bringing Sancho in. The pressure is on for him to settle, play well, and deal with a potential situation where he might not be getting time at his football club, which didn't really end well at Manchester United, did it? So
No.
there's a lot of things that have to fit together for Sancho at Chelsea to work perfectly in a really difficult situation.
Yeah, I don't really get why he'd want to join that at the moment, because you're going to have wide left. Neto keeps coming on wide left. Who else was starting left there?
Mudryk.
Yeah, there we go. So you've got two there. You don't want to write off Mudryk straight away because that's an expensive asset. Then the right hand side, you've got Madueke and Palmer can play out there as well, which is most likely where I think he'd go. So we can then move inside the pitch. Then you've got Jackson who can also cover, like we said. And then Nkunku can cover left, and also Felix who can maybe cover left, even though he's more of a central player. So when Sancho goes in, he has to play really well, but I think he needs consistency and to play and to be given time and trust to be able to do that. Like John's saying, you need people around him, but in like that system, he'll get people around him when they eventually push up. But a lot of the things you'd want them to do are to carry the ball. His numbers look good for aggressive passes and carries. So like he looks like an improvement on Sterling if you look just at data. But we saw kind of struggle at Man United, which is hard to judge him on because so much of that wasn't geared to any of his strengths whatsoever. So
he often got isolated in those games, didn't he?
Yeah.
So he'd be sort of thrown over one side of the pitch, and it's like, now make something happen.
And exactly, and then you've got other stuff that's not working at all. So then you're having to constantly deal with all the different bits going on there that doesn't work. I mean, he did well at Borussia Dortmund. He got to play in Champions League final. If you were him, you'd be thinking you want to go somewhere like that, so you can actually be the star player and you can get your minutes, so you can play. Like he's, not really in the England conversation anymore. That's the pinnacle of all English footballers want to have. But you just want to play and be the star of the team. And I guess you've got to be ambitious and determined to think that you can do that at somewhere like Chelsea, having just come from Man United where it hasn't worked, with all the new players that they've got as well. Maybe he wants to be in London. There must be loads of other things that want to be on there, but it's probably not the best career move. Maybe I'll look very silly in a long time when he scores 18 goals in the season.
Well, if he does, then good for him.
I would think that'd be great.
But at the moment, as we've seen, it's a very difficult situation at Chelsea. And yes, they will only have 25 players in their Premier League squad, but they may also have 25 players over on another field over there with faces like slapped arses,
lots of friends,
thinking what the hell is going on, and it all being a difficult environment. But who knows? We shall see. Just to remind everyone, if you are watching on YouTube and you want to find out more about The Athletic, do head on to the live blog, which is bringing you all the latest developments on transfer deadline day. For example, people who are familiar with teams outside of the top 20, Brighton's Jeremy Sarmiento has just signed for Burnley. He's gone out on loan. He did well for Ipswich last season in getting them into the top division, and he has joined Burnley, who dropped out of the division. Ajax's Carlos Forbes is travelling to Wolves for a medical. Ajax have tried to shift quite a few players during this transfer window, so it's exciting potential signing for Wolves on loan with a €13.5 million. That's £11.4 million or $14.9 million option to buy. You perked up like some sort of Dutch footballing expert meerkat there, John. Do you want to tell me something about Carlos Forbes?
I know very little about Carlos Forbes,
right,
so no.
Fine. Okay.
2.8 billion Japanese yen.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll go through as many of the different exchange rates as possible. One thing I did want to talk about, because there are still some deals obviously to be done broadly, but I found today quite interesting from a goalkeeping perspective, because we've had a real ping pong of goalkeepers. Should we try and go through them and see the sort of the chain?
Yes, please.
Chain reaction. So we had Kepa going from Chelsea to Bournemouth. You potentially had Mark Travers going to Crystal Palace, but that didn't happen because instead of Travers going, it was Neto who went, and he's now potentially going to go to Arsenal because they were looking for a backup to Raya, because Ramsdale has gone to Southampton and he dressed up as Hagrid in his announcement video. We could go on. There's obviously Sam Johnson leaving Crystal Palace to go to Wolves. There's the potential of Sarr going to Saudi Arabia and leaving Wolves. And there's also Matt Turner from Nottingham Forest, going in at Crystal Palace to replace Sam Johnson. So there is loads going on. Petrovic obviously left Chelsea as well and went to sister club Strasbourg. Out of all those goalkeepers, they are becoming ever more important in terms of play styles, aren't they? I mean, do you think that first of all, Kepa is the right fit for your love interest, Andoni Iraola, who's in charge of Bournemouth?
It's funny, isn't it? Because like all of this goalkeeper movement is like when you do a draft fantasy team league, and then someone goes for a goalkeeper at some point, and everyone's like, I've got to go for a goalkeeper now, so all the goalkeepers go. So it's almost like we've seen that happen. But Kepa coming into Bournemouth, I think is a good move. I think that what Bournemouth need is a goalkeeper who is able to do a little bit more. In terms of, I think Neto is a fantastic shot stopper, a really good reaction keeper. We saw him doing it a couple of times in the game against Newcastle at the weekend. But there are some areas where he is a little bit more deficient, and I think Iraola wants to have a bit more of a well-rounded goalkeeper. I think Kepa will be that. So I don't think Kepa will necessarily have the sort of reaction stopping that we see from Neto, but I do think that he will up in certain areas, so on the ball, but also in terms of controlling his box as well. So interested to see how that one goes. Having said that, Neto has gone to Arsenal, which seems like quite a risk to me in many respects, because of the reasons that I've just said. It's a scenario where you're going from, I suppose, if David Raya does get injured, Neto would be the backup goalkeeper, and I think for a team like what you want for a team like Bournemouth is very different from what you want from a team like Arsenal, right? Because for Bournemouth, they are going to concede big chances every once in a while, but a lot of their build-up is to do with being quite direct. Whereas with Arsenal, it's the other way around. You want a bit more patience on the ball, and you also they're super defensively strong, and so you want to make sure that you're not giving away easy chances. So interested to see how that one goes as well.
Can I ask you about Aaron Ramsdale?
You can ask me anything you want.
Because he was obviously a very popular character at Arsenal, and then basically was put in a difficult situation with David Raya coming in from Brentford and eventually got squeezed out, but sort of kept his counsel and was part of the squad, was number 2, etc., etc. He's got his move now. He's back playing football. For people who have forgotten whether he's a good goalkeeper or not, is he a good goalkeeper? And will he be an asset to Southampton?
I think he is a good goalkeeper. I would say my analysis of goalkeepers isn't as strong as other parts of the football pitch, because I just haven't ever played in goals. I don't know any of that stuff. But what you see from Ramsdale was that he's really, really good in the first half of a season. But I think what we saw Arsenal was that in the second half, numbers started to decline slightly. And I think both of the seasons he was there, I can't remember exactly what that was, but anyway, his numbers went down a little bit in the second half of seasons, and as to why that is, we don't know. But he is good at launching the ball. He seems like a nice chap to have around. Good shot stopper. Like, stats are all semi-decent, but there was, I don't know, like Arteta wanted someone else to come in and replace it. So Ramsdale was there to take him up to a certain level, and then he's quite cutthroat and then went straight for someone else to try and improve on that position. There were things that Ramsdale talked about, which is nice to be open and talk about things. He says how he struggles to pay attention or like to really concentrate all the way through games, especially when the ball's nowhere near your own goal, which is probably not the best thing to have around Arteta, who's, seems to be a rather insane perfectionist. So maybe that's a thing there. I think it's nice he gets to play again. Like, he's a top level goalkeeper. Can make any team better. Well, not any team. Southampton can make them better.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it turns out, and hopefully for him, it is a prosperous season at Southampton. Still don't have any points so far this season. Let's just show you the room that we're in, if we may. As you can see, you have John there, you have JJ there, and you have this empty chair here. The buttocks that were placed on this chair belong to David Ornstein, who is the football correspondent here at The Athletic, and he is...
I'm hearing Chelsea have made a bid.
Yeah, he's not in the room at the moment, as you can see, but he will be returning, and we will be getting to more of your questions. If you want to put any questions to David about deals that you want to see done at your club, or to reflect on some of the deals that have already been completed, then we will get his pearls of wisdom and find out who's on the phone at the moment. We can hear him yabbering the other side of the door in the studio. It sounds as if something's happening. So hopefully we will find out a little bit more. I wanted to just take a little bit of a broader look at the window, if I may, with my two learned expert friends. One who is, no, both are wearing shorts. It shows how into it they are. They're just so they can just feel that they are on the football pitch at all times as well. Your pick for the sort of the team that has impressed you with the business that they have done so far in this transfer window? That's just a nice question to throw at you, isn't it?
The team that has impressed me with the business they've done in the window.
Yeah.
I think I have been impressed with... I like what Spurs have done, who they've signed. I think they signed a couple of really nice, underrated players. I really like Archie Gray from what I've seen of him, and I really like Lucas Bergvall. I think they're really nice, smart, young players, and Odegaard as well.
Yeah.
Odegaard, so I did this sensible transfer series, and he kept popping up in data. I thinking he'd be a good pick for somewhere. I didn't do Spurs because Alex Barker did. Did you put Odegaard in there?
He was going to, but he then went. He decided he wanted a right-hand side player, and I think Odegaard played on the left most of the time.
There we go. So he was on the radar. So I think that's really smart signings from Spurs. They've got a load of good young players as well in the academy coming through, so they could actually, if they keep this together, it's always the same as Spurs, they could actually go on to do something really special if they can keep all that group together and keep working with Postecoglou and it all goes the way they want it to. I also think I like the business that Brighton have done because they've spent, was it almost 200 million or something? A huge amount of money because they're going for it and they've signed really good players.
Yeah, but they've spent the money that they've got in for the likes of Caicedo and
from Chelsea.
Like that.
I think the money
they've spent the Chelsea money, which is great, and great for Fabian Herzler to have arrived at that moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and some of them are there's some really good signings they've made, and if I can just find the list of all of them that I've written down,
I can read them out for you if you want. Jorginho Ritter, Yankuba Minter from Newcastle, formerly
like him,
at Feyenoord last season. Mats Wiefer,
he's good.
We've also got Brian Gruder, who everyone is excited about in Germany.
One of the hot topics in German football. Hot topics? No, one of the hot prospects.
Hot prospects.
A top prospect.
Yeah.
Is he hot? It's up for you to decide.
Absolutely.
Ferdi Kadioglu from Fenerbahce.
The left back, yes.
Yeah. And Matt O'Reilly, unfortunately got injured midweek, so he'll be out for a while, but we'll be there soon and we'll improve them. And then Ibrahim Osman, who is a winger that everyone was excited about at Nordjylland in Denmark.
Denmark, yeah.
They've sent him out on loan. They've got so many exciting wide forwards, they can afford to send the exciting wide forward at the bottom of their list out on loan to improve somewhere else. So, really exciting window from them, I think.
In terms of, that was JJ's sort of picks. Spurs, Brighton impressed with their business. Is there anyone that's sort of?
Yeah, I guess West Ham have done a lot this window. They brought in a lot of big players. They spent a lot of money on Max Kilman, which I think maybe would have surprised some people. But so far this season, he's looked really, really good. So they're bringing in known quantities, but. And paying money for them, but they are seeming to pay off immediately.
I think he came out really well, again, and did sensible transfers looking in terms of what his data profiles him as. Like he scores as a top player, and you wouldn't maybe think of it. Yeah.
And that's what good recruitment does as well, right? You're not just simply looking for players that no one's heard of, you're looking at players who are going to improve you and you can get for maybe a slightly higher fee, but you're making sure that they are going to improve your team, and that's what he's done. Crescencio Somerville from Leeds, who had a fantastic season in the Championship last season, an exciting player, and he's already looking like he's going to be dangerous for West Ham as well. And then just a few other interesting names: Nicholas Füllkrug, who we all knew from the Euros, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who we've known from Manchester United for a while. And Guido Rodriguez they got on free, which is a nice pickup as well. And Jean-Claire Todibo, centre back, that everyone's been raving about, I would say, for a few seasons now, but has been really solid for the last few seasons. I think they're going from Nice. They've just strengthened that squad at every level.
One of the exciting ones as well.
Is that Luis
Guilherme? Guilherme. I'm not sure you say his name. He's meant to be a really, really good prospect out of Brazil. There's quite a few of them usually. Right winger. In terms of on the pitch, meant to be a very, very good player. I've seen some clips of him, but never seen a full game, so I can't tell you for certain.
But I think their squad now is looking fantastic. They've got depth. They've already had some fantastic players in players like Paqueta and Jared Bowen and Mohamed Kudus as well. Now they've really stepped it up by giving them the players around them. So it'd be fascinating to see how they do this season.
One team I wanted to ask about is Liverpool. It's actually something that we touched upon on the Athletic FC podcast, which I regularly present on the Fridays, previewing the weekend's action with John alongside me. And we were talking about Federico Chiesa, weren't we, coming into Liverpool. I'm sure everyone watching will have seen the lovely shots of him getting his hands on his shirt. It was very much akin to JJ, who you may well follow on Instagram, when he received his Aberdeen shirt. The same sort of love and affection. You saw Chiesa just pick it up.
I paid for mine.
Hold it. Yes, yeah. I don't think Chiesa was charged.
And I attached value to it because I had to exchange what essentially is gold for it.
Yes.
Although it was digital, so...
It is pinned against the goal. Is it? Oh, we don't do the gold standard anymore, do we? I don't know.
I don't really know what you're talking about.
What is it in yen, though?
Well, you can't just go into the club shop and take the shirt. You have to exchange something. But like, especially in the UK, we have
money.
Yeah, money. So
Gotcha.
you exchange that for
you were talking
services
about
and
money,
goods.
weren't you?
Yeah.
You were talking about money. I forgot what that was. Okay, fine. But yeah, going back to Chiesa, obviously really happy to be at Liverpool. There'll be a lot of fans thinking, okay, cool. Well, he was really dominant in the previous Euros when it was in England. It was in all different countries, but predominantly towards the end of England. But what is he going to do now? Because he's had an injury. The hope will be that he can click into gear and be as happy with his shirt on the pitch. Yeah,
I like signings like this where you're finding value by picking up a player who people have maybe forgotten about a little bit, but they've had a big injury. So 2022, I think he had a big knee injury, and he's coming back from that now. I think often now we dismiss players who have like a big injury like that, but there's been a few clubs I think who've been able to find value in the market by picking up those kind of players, and I know I bang on about Bournemouth a lot, but they've done it a couple of times. So I'm thinking Luis Sinisterra, they brought him in, he has a long injury history. And what they've done is they've got the infrastructure there to actually be able to rotate their players, their attacking players, such that they can make sure that they're not overplaying a player like Sinisterra. They also brought in Alex Scott. Yeah. They brought him in when he had a knee injury. They got him probably under his value because of that, and they've been able to manage his minutes really well as well. Obviously, there's caveats here. Tyler Adams went there and has had issues with his hamstring ever since he got there. So just because you're getting a player and have a fairly good record with working with injured players and making sure they don't get re-injured doesn't mean it's always going to work out, but you are going to probably more often than not find value in the market that way. So I'm hoping that will happen with Liverpool. Liverpool have a stocked front line, so they'll be able to rotate Chiesa. They'll be able to use him enough to get him back to the level that he was before, hopefully without him having to play so much that he gets injured. And I can see it working out really well for him and them.
Just a little transfer update on this deadline day. Maxwell Cornet is travelling to Southampton to undergo a medical ahead of a season-long loan move from West Ham. The West Ham forward, this is just from our live blog at the moment, and it says the West Ham forward is allowed to leave, with Russell Martin saying earlier in the day that Southampton would have to wait and see if they could sign the player. Well, it looks as if it is going to happen. Our reporter Jacob Tanswell has just posted that update. I was going to ask you, JJ, about someone whose deal has been completed and got a hero's welcome when he arrived in Napoli. Thank you very much for the questions coming in, by the way. The Boon was asking about Chiesa, and G. Waters was asking about Scott McTominay going to Napoli.
Yes.
How did that make you feel, seeing Scott McTominay head out to Napoli? For what, 30 million euros? I think that was the fee, something round about that.
Well, it made me feel more excited than I've ever been, I think.
Good.
Yeah. Do you like that one?
Yeah.
That's good. What do we want to talk about Scott McTominay going there? Like what should we say about it?
Well, I'm just interested now that potentially, because the Billy Gilmore move was sort of on the rocks, but it may well still go through. They're going to have a Scottish heart.
Well, this is not quite the same thing, but Italian clubs have found a lot of joy from buying Scottish players or from the Scottish Premiership recently, because there's lots of value to be had. And I wonder if one of the reasons is that they get a certain sort of physical profile in their players, that you don't get from other places, and often that really helps. If you've got really good technical players and tactical players, a good way to stop that is by kicking them, or just by having someone who's faster, more powerful, stronger, taller. McTominay's misprofiled a lot. I think he's not a defender. He's not a central defender. He's not a defensive midfielder. He can win the ball and he can carry it. So we don't think of him as a position. He likes to win the ball back. He likes to carry it. He's not great at passing it, but he does do that. He's not good in build-up. He's good at attacking the box from deep positions, disrupting things, causing a bit of panic. Good at heading the ball from crosses, whether set pieces or open play.
And he's clutch.
He wins you points. Yeah. Also, like, lots of managers played him because he has the right attitude, and that's really important, like the right mental attributes. So he comes in there and he leads by example. He's a professional. All these things that you are kind of nebulous and can't really quantify. But he is a solid player who I think can win you games if you play him the right way. Not really a starter for Man United, but very important for Scotland. But if he plays in that sort of position, like Conte in the past, I'm not sure what he's going to do this season with Napoli. But in the past, he'll play usually 3 central defenders, and you'll have 2 strikers, maybe 3 forwards along this front line. But if he plays 2 central strikers, like he did at Inter Milan, you'll have 1 player behind them. That's where I think Scott McTominay should play. If not, he can play as part of a midfield too. But he's not the defensive one. You have 1 player you drop in, which is the Gilmore type, where you can help with your build-up, things like that. And then Scott McTominay is not part of that bit. He's there to then disrupt and carry the ball. And if you're playing against teams who are marking you man-to-man, like slowing things down, McTominay is excellent for being able to move out the way of those systems, to drag players out of the way, and that's what he does. So I'd like it. That's why I was so excited. Yeah. Also, it's good to see Scottish players do that. And like at Lewis Ferguson, like McTominay's like a sort of taller version of Ferguson, really, because Ferguson does similar things, like really good battler.
Who went from Aberdeen to...
He went to Bologna.
Yeah.
And he won midfielder of the season. You have this different kind of awards in Serie A. So he won that playing for Bologna under Thiago Motta. Did very, very well. And so maybe that's a sign to go, look for someone just like Lewis Ferguson, you see.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
I think that's good. Just a reminder, let's just show the studio again if we can, producer Don. David Ornstein still isn't here. He's still the other side of the door. Our executive producer, Christopher, is going to leave the studio now and he's going to go and try and pull him back.
Oh, here he is.
The door's opening and he's coming back in, ladies and gentlemen. David Ornstein is back. Come on in, David. And I know this is difficult sometimes because, just to explain the process sometimes, when news comes into you on your phone, we then have to make sure that we do the various checks, etc., and it's all sort of nailed down. And then we're able to put that news out via our live blog. You'll see it posted on our social media and things like that. So me asking David the minute he comes back in off a phone call, what was that all about, is quite a difficult question to ask. So, David, what is there anything, because you've been out for absolutely ages, what can you update us on anything?
No, it's just, in these last hours you need to be across everything, and you need to be reacting to any suggestion that something might be happening, and quite often the case is that it's not, or it is, and it's very delicate because people are working to try and make things happen. So, for example, some of the calls and messages I just had to make related to the Anthony Elanga thing that we mentioned before, which is a report that broke saying that Newcastle are trying to sign him and that it's developing quickly. What I think has happened is that some discussions took place about a possible swap deal involving Miguel Almiron going to Nottingham Forest and some money, so Almiron and money for Elanga, but it didn't get past the discussion stage. I think Elanga was mentioned maybe in the build-up to the PSR deadline, when Newcastle were sort of trading, and in the end Elliot Anderson moved from Newcastle to Nottingham Forest. So that was one thing, and then just making checks on the big clubs. One of the things, I need to take this, so I'm going to have to head on out, and I'll try and be back.
Okie dokie, he's off again. That was, I didn't quite catch the name of the person that popped up on the phone. I could speculate. Who do we think it was? Who do we think
it was the King.
Do you think it was?
Yeah.
I still call him King Prince Charles, but
That's nice.
it's just old habits. Anyway, let's get back to some of your questions. We're probably going to go for around about another 10 minutes on this deal sheet live. And there is one thing that I need to talk to you about as well. What is a deal sheet? Oh, yes, and I'm going to tell you a little bit later on. It is more than just the articles that we have been putting out every Tuesday of this transfer window for months and months and months. It's been going on. Yes, I'll explain exactly what a deal sheet is. Do you know what a deal sheet is?
No.
Good. Do you know?
It's a small mammal, lives on a hill.
Yeah, but in terms of football, aside from the small mammal-like deal sheet, it is, you don't know, do you?
It's a sheet full of deals.
That's what you might think it is if you have been a loyal follower of The Athletic, because we've been reflecting on all the big teams, all the other things that we've been hearing on, what is going on in the transfer market. That has been the deal sheet on The Athletic. But I will eventually tell you what a deal sheet is at the end of this, because it will be important once we go off air. The deadline here in the UK is 11 p.m. The deal sheet is important in that. Okay. A couple of other questions have come in, as has David Ornstein. He's still got his ears in. Are you having a call live on air, or are you
No, I'm not.
We were speculating as to who the call was from, but we're not going to ask you who it was.
You can ask, but you won't get an answer.
Fine, that's good. Broadly speaking, in this transfer window, you mentioned it before when you were talking about Anthony Elanga, the PSR deadline. If we reflect on the transfer window as a whole, it's been incredible, this transfer window. Obviously, we had the tournament of the Euros going on. We had the Copa America going on as well, which we covered, of course, on The Athletic. But having that sort of wave of action during this transfer window, it's been like no other, really, hasn't it?
They're all different, I guess.
Yeah. But just in terms of having that initial deadline of June the 30th, where deals had to be done, and then we saw that toing and froing with fringe players being sold for a lot of money.
Yeah.
To sort teams out effectively.
Yeah.
And then it could get on with the normal business.
Yeah, I mean, we had that the year previously. It just hadn't become such a big thing. I remember that teams were trying to balance the books heading into June 30th, but maybe there were fewer clubs in PSR trouble. It was maybe less of a thing because clubs thought that the rules maybe didn't have teeth like they realise they do now.
Yeah.
And then there were tournaments, as you say, in terms of the Euros, the Copa America, and then the Olympics. So clubs would lose players for a long period of time, and they needed to get things going early before that. Straight after that, we assumed, and there was a feeling across the industry, that it would all kick off in August, and that hasn't really happened. And now it's a busy sort of deadline week and day, but it's still not as crazy as some others have been. And maybe that reflects a few things. This time last year, there was the Saudi Pro League fueling the European market, and in particular the Premier League. In the process of taking players from the major competitions, it was giving those clubs that they'd lost players from money to either solve their own financial issues or go out and spend. And you saw some big deals last summer. I'm not saying directly related to Saudi, but Declan Rice, £100 million plus from West Ham to Arsenal. Harry Kane moving to the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich for 100 million euros. Even big deals like Mason Mount, 65 million pounds with a year to go on his contract. So it's been a little bit more depressed. Clubs have had to be more creative, you could say. But the amount of work that goes on is absolutely fevered and furious behind the scenes to explore different avenues and to solve problems in squads and address deficiencies and try and kick on to be even better. And so, most of what is worked upon doesn't happen. This just scratches at the surface. It's a tiny percentage. But it's still enough to keep us talking and busy with it all.
Who's been the winner of the window? I'll ask you guys in a moment's time. David, who would be your winner?
Let me just check that I haven't missed anything. Who would be the winner of the window? I don't really like that expression because concept.
David,
because,
who do you think has had the best transfer window?
Well, you don't know until they play and you see it in action.
Let's ask you it in a different way. Whose fans do you think will be most content having ticked all the boxes that they've been asking you for? Because you'll get so many, messages on social media from fans of teams saying, have you got any news about X? Have you got any news about X?
Yeah.
How many of those fans do you think have been, or whose fans have been pacified the most by the action that their clubs have made?
I prefer the first question.
Okay, fine.
No. Because the reason it's tricky is that a lot of fans are thrilled by volume of transfers.
New is exciting.
And we've done great because lots of different players have arrived. When it's more, for me, quality than quantity. And so West Ham have done a load of business. And I'm not saying it's bad. Actually, I think most of it's pretty good. But many fans would just say, oh, West Ham have won the win, or Ipswich have done loads and excited their fans. But I look at it in a more sort of factual way of what they've brought in to address the needs, as you said. And so I might look to Tottenham. I think Tottenham have done some really good business in sort of picking off some of the best young players in different markets. It was actually January, Lucas Bergvall, because we spoke about that when I broke the story, but he only arrived in the summer. So a great young player from Sweden. And then you've got Wilson Odobert, fantastic talent, young 19-year-old French winger. Out of nowhere, that signing. It was pretty much announced before there were any reports and rumours, which I shouldn't be celebrating as a journalist, but actually that's very impressive, of Daniel Levy, Johan Langer, Rob Mackenzie, Frederick Leth, all of the guys working at Spurs with Ange Postecoglou in the heart of it all. Archie Gray, one of the best young English players and the best player in the Championship, you could say. And so that has solved needs for them in midfield, in creativity, on the wide position for the now and the future. Dominic Solanke, they needed a striker. You can debate the fee, but I think they'll be delighted with the profile. It was exactly what they needed. The only thing Spurs haven't got that they were looking for and will continue to is, I think, a left-sided central defender. So it's just Mickey van der Ven there. And so that's something that they might be a little bit disappointed and concerned about with all the games and competitions they have ahead. But they've gone about it quickly, efficiently, early with most of their business. They're not scrambling around on deadline day. They seem to have spent their money wisely. They're not in PSR trouble. They did have a bit of cash flow issue. But overall, I do look around and see some bits of impressive business under the new regime at Manchester United. I like Liverpool having the courage of their convictions to go with a really impressive squad and a cheeky little deal in Chiesa and a goalkeeper for the future. So I can look across the league and pick out all sorts of good work that has gone on. But in terms of the most needs filled and looking in decent shape, I'd probably give Tottenham that accolade for now, which is probably a curse because when we say this sort of thing, they'll go and play matches and not win.
We've got a couple of minutes left. What's on your sort of, right, I need to tick these things off my list this evening. Is there any sort of predictions, any crystal ball stuff that you can throw out at our viewers on YouTube?
No, I think obviously we've got to watch the combination of Chelsea as ever. Yeah. So that's Sancho, Sterling and Osimhen. The Osimhen situation seems really tough because, when I explained it earlier, will he agree to the terms that they are operating under for all new signings, and that would be a dramatic drop down in salary for him, and I don't think he would be looking to do that. He could stay at Napoli and continue to earn his salary. He could have gone to Saudi and earned a lot more. I'm going to have to take this. So the pearls of wisdom.
Well, why don't you just quickly say goodbye to everyone?
Goodbye, everyone.
That's David Ornstein signing off because we have reached 6 o'clock. He's running off. And it's a good way to end, actually, because David is running off to carry on his work, and we will carry on our work here at The Athletic all the way through the deadline and then beyond as well. And we will do, and just to let you in on a little bit of a secret, there will be quite a few articles assessing each team's transfer windows, and some of the inside transfer window articles are very fun to contribute to, because sometimes there are things that I've heard quite a few things today about quite a few teams that will be going into these articles, and I've heard some really quite bizarre things today, so do look out for those. I need to tell you about a deal sheet. I'll do that in a minute, But I wanted to give a final word to the guys who've not been so rude as to just walk out of the studio with their phones in their hands and just sort of said, yeah, I just need to take that call. If that happened in normal life, you'd think, oh, what is that? But obviously this isn't normal life.
Lot, do they?
This isn't normal life. This is the transfer window. This is deadline day. This is what happens, especially with Orny. Right, JJ, your sort of view, your view of this transfer deadline day. Just what would you like to say to people watching and enjoying the coverage and how it feels to you this transfer deadline day?
I thought I knew what Chelsea were doing, and the more they do it, the less I know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They must know something I don't. Good luck to them. I think Newcastle should have bought players, and that's going to be... I'd like to see what happens with them. I'm glad Brighton have bought loads of really great players. That'll be fun to watch. Spurs too. And there'll be more I'll think of in a second.
Yeah, no, that's cool. John, same to you.
Yeah, my message to the fans is it's going to be okay. Your team may not have signed everyone that you wanted, but it will be okay. And yeah, if you're still interested in this stuff, we have a show on tomorrow. And it's all about things we've noticed in the Premier League so far. Lots of little tactical nuances that we've picked up on. So do tune in. That's on the Athletic FC YouTube channel. So do make sure you catch that tomorrow morning.
It's on the YouTube.
It's on the YouTube.
And remember that football is played on the pitch. That's the game. That's the sport. And this is all just transfers.
Yes. But you need transfers to have the players on the pitch.
Not to promote the academy players that you brought through.
Ugh, you're absolutely right.
Got you there.
You're absolutely right.
But Aberdeen did do some great transfers, so I really enjoy this window, and it's been fantastic. It's going to be a good season. Celtic should probably have bought some more players because they've got a good chance of doing something special in the Champions League. But again, I'm glad they didn't, because then it means that Aberdeen have more of a chance of doing something special.
Let's not talk too much about Aberdeen. Let's finish the show. And I just wanted to let you know, for everyone that's followed the deal sheet, there is actually a real deal sheet, and it does come into play on days like this. And the deal sheet is something that can give teams a little bit more time at the end of a transfer window. Sometimes they have to conclude deals at the last minute, and it's not always easy for them to get everything completed and sent over by the deadline. So the deal sheet allows a club to confirm that a deal has been reached in order to allow for additional time to submit remaining documentation. So in the example of today, in the UK, at 11 o'clock deadline, the deal sheet cannot be used until 9 o'clock, and it needs to arrive fully completed before the transfer window closes. And if that is the case, and they do arrive, clubs have then got another 2 hours until 1 a.m. in the morning in which to submit the full paperwork. So at 11 o'clock, usually what we do, we contact the Premier League and we say, how many deal sheets are in? How many deal sheets are in? And they'll say, oh, there's actually 3 or 4 or 5. Some you know about, but then some...
They don't tell you who they are?
We don't know who they are.
That's really cool, isn't
it? So then you will see a deal that has gone in right at the last
So it's basically
minute.
like asking for an extension on an essay at
It's basically,
university. Yeah.
well, that's what transfer deadline day is all about. It's basically, you're a well-educated, you are both well-educated guys who obviously excelled in academia. I was not like that, and I left everything to the last minute. I remember getting my dissertation bound in the last moments and being in a car with a good friend
of mine. Did you hand in a deal sheet?
And I should have got a deal sheet. If I had a deal sheet then, I could have got a little bit of extra time. Anyway, we digress. John, thank you very much indeed for your company. Look forward to your show tomorrow. JJ, as always, thank you very much indeed. Great to see you.
Thank you.
And we didn't get you to compose a song about David Ornstein in his absence, which we probably should have done. But maybe we'll do that on the next show. Thank you very much indeed for watching, everyone. This has been The Deal Sheet. Continue to follow the coverage on The Athletic. The transfer blog is going to be going all the way through until the end of the deadline. And don't forget to like, subscribe and do all the good business right here on YouTube as well. Thank you very much. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your deadline day. Take it easy.